You know this feeling. Maybe you have known it for years. The chest that never fully opens, the shoulders that never fully drop, the breath that stays shallow even on days when nothing particularly terrible is happening. And the strangest part is this: you cannot always explain it. Someone asks if you are okay, and you say yes, because technically you are. There is no catastrophe. There is no emergency. And yet the body is braced as if one is coming. This is the quiet weight that so many people carry without ever being told there is another way to live. This is the exhaustion that no vacation fixes, no productivity system solves, no achievement dissolves, because it does not come from what is happening around you. It comes from something happening inside you, from the way the mind has learned to fight the present moment instead of simply inhabiting it, from the belief absorbed so gradually you never noticed it arrive that safety must be earned through constant vigilance, that rest is a reward, not a right, that if you stop managing everything, even for a moment, something will fall apart, and so the mind keeps running, rehearsing conversations that have not happened, analyzing decisions already made, building elaborate models of futures that may never arrive. Not because you are broken, not because something is fundamentally wrong with you, but because this is what the mind does when it has never been shown a different way, when no one ever taught you how to come home to yourself, when every message you received from school, from work, from the culture itself said that the answer to discomfort is more effort, more optimization, more control. What no one told you is that suffering rarely comes from what life is doing to you. It comes more often than you realize from the resistance, from the war the mind wages against uncertainty, against impermanence, against the simple fact that you cannot hold everything still no matter how hard you try. And the tighter you grip, the more exhausted you become. The more you plan, the more the unplanned feels like a threat. The more you control, the smaller your world quietly becomes. If this lands somewhere true inside you, if you recognize this tension, this running, this unnamed heaviness, then stay with what follows. Not because these are instructions you must execute perfectly, not because transformation requires heroic effort, but because somewhere beneath all that noise there is a stillness that has always been yours, and it is closer than you think. If reflections like this one speak to something real in you, consider staying close to this space. There is much more waiting here for those who are ready to listen. The tradition of Buddhist wisdom has been misunderstood by many in the modern world. It is often imagined as something remote, something belonging to monasteries and incense and robes and rituals too foreign to be useful. But at its heart, stripped of all ceremony, it is something remarkably practical. It is a precise, honest and compassionate investigation into the nature of the mind, into why human beings suffer and what can actually be done about it. Not someday, not after enough discipline has been accumulated, now, in this breath. In this ordinary, imperfect, already sufficient moment, the Buddha was not offering a religion in the way most people understand religion. He was offering a methodology, a set of tools refined over centuries for understanding the mechanics of your own mind so clearly that the grip of anxiety and reactivity begins to loosen. Not because life becomes easier, but because you stop fighting the parts of it you cannot change, and you stop missing the parts that are already here. What follows is not a list of rules to memorize. It is a series of recognitions, things that, once seen clearly, cannot be unseen. Each one addresses a different layer of the suffering that anxiety creates. Each one offers not a demand, but an opening. You do not have to do all of them at once. You do not have to do any of them perfectly. The practice is simply returning again and again with as much gentleness as you can find to what is true right now. The first recognition begins not in the mind but in the body. This is where most people never think to look, because anxiety feels so mental, so verbal, so loud inside the head. But before the mind says, I need to fix this, the body has already responded. The jaw has already tightened. The shoulders have already risen toward the ears. The stomach has already contracted. The breath has already become small and careful, as if breathing too fully might somehow make things worse. Control is not only a thought, it is a physical posture. It is the body's attempt to make itself smaller, harder, less vulnerable to what might come. Most people spend entire lifetimes in this posture without ever noticing it. They have confused the tension with alertness, the bracing with preparation, the held breath with focus. But here is what this chronic tightness actually costs. It keeps the nervous system locked in a low-grade state of emergency even when there is no emergency. It trains the brain to scan constantly for threat. It narrows perception until the world looks like a series of problems to solve rather than a life to inhabit. And the most exhausting part is that it does not actually protect you from anything. It only makes the waiting feel more real than the living. Tomorrow morning, before you do anything else, try something very simple. Do not reach for your phone. Do not begin the internal negotiation with the day. Just notice your body exactly as it is. Notice your jaw, notice your shoulders, notice the depth of your breath. Do not try to change anything yet. Just see it. Because you cannot release what you have not first acknowledged. And then, only then, take one breath that is slightly fuller than usual. Not dramatic, not forced, just a little more room than you have been allowing. And as you exhale, let the shoulders drop a fraction of an inch. Let the jaw soften just slightly. Nothing in your life will have changed, but something will be different. There will be a little more space, a little less war. This is where the healing begins. Not in solving the problems, but in unclenching the body that has been bracing against them. The second recognition asks you to do something the mind finds genuinely difficult, to put down what was never yours to carry in the first place. Because so much of what exhausts you is not actually your burden. Other people's moods, other people's choices, the opinions of people who do not know you well, the outcomes of situations in which you played your part honestly and completely, the future which has not arrived, the past which cannot be changed. The mind insists, if I think about this enough, maybe I can control it. And so you replay the conversation, trying to understand what went wrong. You imagine the worst possible outcome, trying to prepare for it. You monitor how everyone around you is feeling, trying to prevent someone from being upset. And slowly, almost without noticing, your inner world becomes so crowded with things that do not belong to you that there is no room left for the things that do. Buddhist wisdom draws a line that most people never learn to draw. There is what is yours, your effort, your honesty, your presence, your response in this moment. And there is everything else, results, reactions, interpretations, other people's inner lives, the general chaos of existence. You can care deeply about the second category without being responsible for it. Caring is open. It says, I will show up fully and honestly. Control's tight. It says, everything must conform to what I need it to be. One of these creates a human life. The other creates an endless emergency. Each morning before the noise begins, ask yourself quietly, what is truly mine today? Notice how short the real list is. Your attention, your kindness, your choices in this hour, and then gently acknowledge the rest, other people's reactions, the weather of life itself, and let it be what it is. Not with indifference, not with detachment that pretends not to care, but with the open hand that holds the world without crushing it, like sand resting in a palm that does not close. When the hand remains open, the sand stays. When it grips, everything slips away faster. The third recognition concerns a habit so deeply embedded that most people do not even recognize it as a habit. It is the rehearsal of the future, the mind's compulsion to run through scenarios, to prepare for conversations that have not happened, to practice pain in advance as if pre-suffering will somehow protect you from the real thing. Has worrying ever actually prevented what you feared? Or has it simply made you live through the difficulty twice? Once in imagination and once, if it ever came at all, in reality. The future does not exist yet. It is a story, a very convincing story, often decorated with plausible details, but still a story. And while you're living inside that story, your actual life, this moment, this breath, this opportunity to be genuinely present continues quietly without you. When you catch yourself rehearsing, do not scold the mind. It is only trying to protect you in the way it knows how. Simply say, gently and without drama, not now, and then return to something real and immediate. The warmth of the cup in your hands, the sound of the room, the particular quality of the light this afternoon. These things are not grand or impressive, but they are alive, they are happening, and reality, the Chiko Trawitao, the direct, unnarrated, actual present moment is almost always calmer than what imagination builds around it. The future in your head is crowded with catastrophe. The present met directly is usually just ordinary, manageable, quiet, safe enough to breathe inside. The fourth recognition is perhaps the most quietly liberating of all. It asks you to stop fighting the one thing that is absolutely certain to continue no matter what you do. Change. Everything changes, not some things, not only the difficult things, everything, your moods, your relationships, the version of yourself you are right now, the pain you are carrying, the joy you are experiencing, the certainty you are clinging to. All of it is moving, shifting, becoming something other than what it was, in the way that a river cannot agree to stop flowing, simply because someone standing on the bank finds the movement unsettling. Imagine holding a handful of sand. When the hand is open, the sand rests there gently, present and available. When you squeeze, trying to ensure that not a single grain escapes, it pours through your fingers faster. This is what clinging does to life. The tighter the grip, the more acute the loss feels, because you're always measuring the current moment against some fixed idea of how things should be or should have stayed. Buddhist wisdom does not ask you to pretend that loss is not real or that endings do not hurt. It asks something more honest and more useful. Can you allow things to be what they are, for as long as they are, without demanding that they be permanent? When you know something is temporary, a conversation, an afternoon, a season of life, you listen more closely. You speak more kindly. You are more fully present because you're not trying to freeze the moment. You are simply inside it. And that, it turns out, is the only place where any moment has ever actually been. The fifth recognition turns inward to something the mind does constantly and quietly and with great conviction. It tells stories. Not just about the world, but about you. A single event occurs, and before it is even finished, the mind is already constructing a narrative around it. This proves I am not capable. This always happens to me. If I cannot control this, everything will fall apart. These sentences feel like facts. They arrive with the weight and confidence of observation, but they are not facts. They are interpretations, built quickly from fear and old experience and dressed in the language of certainty. And the more you believe them without questioning, the more they shape what you are willing to try, to risk, to become. A thought appears. What if I fail? And instead of noticing it as a weather pattern passing through the sky of awareness, the mind builds an entire world around it. It imagines the consequences in detail. It rehearses the judgment of others. It constructs a version of the future in which that one thought becomes destiny. And the body responds as if it is already happening. Heart rate rises. Muscles tighten, breath shallows. All because of a story, not reality, only a story. The next time you feel overwhelmed, pause and ask, not what is happening, but what am I telling myself right now? What story have I added to this moment? And then notice how absolute the language tends to be. Always, never, everything, nothing. The mind loves extremes, but life is almost never extreme. Life is usually somewhere in the middle. Uncertain, yes, but also workable, also navigable. Also, more often than anxiety admits, generally okay. You are not the storm of thoughts. You are the sky in which they move. The sky is never damaged by the weather it contains. It does not need to chase every cloud or rearrange the wind. It simply remains, vast, steady, unchanged by what passes through it. You have the same capacity. Not to be empty of thought, but to be larger than any single thought. To let the worried voice speak without handing it the keys to your entire life. This practice alone, learning to observe the story rather than become it, changes the texture of anxiety in ways that no amount of external rearranging ever could. If these words are finding something real in you, something that has been waiting to be recognized, stay close to this kind of reflection. There is more here, offered in the same spirit of honesty and care. For anyone willing to keep looking, the sixth and final recognition brings everything back to the simplest possible truth, the one that is hardest to trust and most transformative when it is finally allowed. The only place where peace has ever actually existed is here. Not after the problem is solved, not when the uncertainty resolves, not when you have finally prepared well enough or understood enough or controlled enough. Here, in this breath, in this ordinary, imperfect, unfinished moment that does not need to be anything other than what it is. Most suffering, when you look at it carefully, is not happening now. It is happening in memory or imagination. You are replaying what cannot be changed. You are rehearsing what may never arrive. You are living in the elaborate commentary the mind builds around experience rather than in the experience itself. And while that commentary runs, the actual life, simple, immediate, already here, passes quietly without you in it. This is not a failure, it is a pattern. Patterns can be interrupted, not by force, not by adding more effort to the already exhausting effort of managing everything, but by returning, again and again, without drama and without judgment, to what is actually present. The sensation of your feet on the floor, the rhythm of your breath. The particular quality of the light in this room right now, which will never be exactly this way again. These small returns are not escapes from life. They are the practice of actually living it, of being genuinely present for the moments that constitute your days rather than always being somewhere else mentally while your life unfolds without you. You do not need to perfect any of this. You do not need to become someone who never worries, never contracts, never gets pulled into the story. The invitation is not perfection, it is returning, one breath at a time, one gentle, unheroic return to the present moment, and then another, and then another. This is what the practice actually looks like. Not a dramatic transformation, not a permanent arrival, just a quiet, cumulative learning. To trust that this moment, in not the one you are planning for, not the one you are afraid of, but this one, is where your life is actually happening, and that you are allowed to be here for it. May you carry your own mind with a little more gentleness today. May your shoulders find permission to drop. May the breath you are breathing right now be enough, because it is. If this reflection offered you even a small measure of stillness, stay close to this space and subscribe, because there's always more waiting here for those who are ready to come home to themselves.